They say a journal is a key to understanding the true depths of one's mind. They say that journaling, talking about experiences, helps you achieve your true path in life. Total nonsense to me, but I'll give it a try. So I'll be taking my journaling to this site every so often, and hopefully it'll be great. My name is Tiffany Hydrangea, and I work as a sort of historical research expert with the Paranormal Research Institute. Honestly, I don't believe half the things the Institute has in its extensive files, but money is money, and they sure make for an interesting read. I was called today to join the investigative team 7 of the Institute, which itself is called the Julian Page Institute. Based on what I've been given in the pre-mission report, we were spending a week or so in a small city investigating the death of an elderly man living in a unique mansion with a large golden bell placed within the safe hands of a bell tower. The team consisted of the leader, a calm, logical blonde-haired woman that seemed to always be wearing a black coat named Paris Chambers. Next in charge was a nonsensical, seemingly insane, yet surprisingly smart Caleb Bazelia. Third would be a bold, yet critical man named Kieran Gray. Fourth, and last of all, was a young intern sent to learn more about the arts of investigation, called Rainy Light. And then me, a skeptic, but with an eye for a good ghost story, Tiffany Hydrangea. We arrived in the sweet, sunlit city of Maple Inn sometime in the late evening. The house we were investigating, a behemoth of a beast, lay on the outskirts of the city, its sole bell tower reaching into the sky like a pillar of justice. Then the team went our separate ways. The others would be setting up their instruments and other devices in the mansion. And me, I had a story to collect. I stepped into a soothing coffee shop off a street corner and saw a man dressed head to toe in red clothes. "Ah, Jonathan Hughes?" I asked, nearing the man. "Yeah, that's me," he replied, looking at me with scared, confused eyes. "You're wearing all blue, as per the agreement, so you must be Tiffany Hydrangea?" "Yeah, and you're wearing red, so we're all here." I took a seat across from him. "So, you're here to investigate the death of my grandfather, Damon Kryloft?" "Indeed." A waiter passed, and I ordered a cup of sizzling black coffee. I'd be staying up all night, and that's exactly what I needed. "So, when do we begin?" "Now." I took out my phone and turned the record audio function on. "Let's start from the beginning." "Okay. As you probably know by now, the mansion he died in is the one and only Kryloft Mansion, the ancestral home of the Krylofts and its families," began Jonathan. "However, the mansion fell into disrepair half a century ago, and it was only last year when my grandfather, Damien Kryloft, won the lottery and set to work on turning the mansion once more into our proud Kryloft Mansion." "Noted," I murmured, jotting down what the man had said into a notepad I always carried. 2 months ago, the majority of the house, save for the old wine cellar, family cemetery and bell tower, was cleaned up and made great once more. When those were finished, we ran out of spare money to fix up the bell tower and the parts I mentioned. So, my grandfather arranged a sort of party to show off the house to the rest of the world. And then? The party lasted a while, but, like all things, it ended. Jonathan continued. Everyone had left around 9 that night, and I decided to stick around and explore the place a bit more. I practically spent the entire night searching all of the hidden passageways, rooms, and the garden outside. A garden? Yeah, we had an old oil painting of the mansion's garden with roses and so many awesome flowers. My grandfather recreated the garden when he fixed up the ruins of the place. Interesting. I jotted down more notes. Anyway, I found this room that I haven't been able to find since, Jonathan informed. It was a clean white door with a gold knob that stood out from everything else in the house. It wasn't natural because these scratches were all over it. I found it strange, yet something about the door seemed awfully familiar. Did you open it? I asked. Unfortunately not, he responded. You see, it was locked, and I went downstairs to ask my grandfather for the key, and he told me there was no white door of any kind. I took him up to show him the door, yet there was nothing there. Impossible. Possible indeed, Jonathan responded. Anyway, I went to sleep, and the next day I was in the city, shopping, when a little child tapped me on my shoulder. Naturally, I turned around to greet them, but then, well, the child just looked at me and then pointed to a blank, scratch-covered white door in the corner. I rubbed my eyes, refusing to believe it was the same door I had seen only yesterday, when I looked back the door and the child were gone. Well, not exactly. The child, well, he was with his family a distance away, behaving as if nothing had happened. At first, I chalked it up to lack of sleep, but then it happened again. Again? Yeah, this time, I was on a bus when the world suddenly just kind of slowed for a moment, and then, Jonathan paused. Well, then I saw all the passengers, including the driver, while the bus was still moving, get up, and then, in unison, all point at the back of the bus. That's when I looked back and saw the white door seemingly beckoning for me to open it. Then, I suddenly found that I had a golden key in my hand, and that I was walking towards the door. It was like it needed me to open it, and the key had almost gotten in the lock when the bus crashed into a tree and I, along with most of the passengers, were knocked to the ground, Jonathan revealed. Then, time seemed to snap back normally. The explanation was that the driver had suffered a heart attack and lost control of the bus, and that was exactly what was shown on the cameras. And the passengers? I asked. Well, they just told me that they only remembered the bus crashing, and the camera footage didn't show them getting up. That's terrifying. Yeah. Anyway, he stated, resuming the conversation. After that, I began to see the white door more and more, and every time I did, I began to notice more details on it. The shape of the key that seemed to somehow appear in my hand, the smooth texture of the door. I don't know what that door is, but it wants to be opened. Things got worse after I was watching a movie with a group of friends, and then the door appeared on TV, as if it was completely normal for it to be in the background. I saw the actors all point at the door, and I heard this screeching sound come out of their mouths. And it resumed. I turned back to the show, but it only showed me what was supposed to happen. Impossible, I murmured, still taking notes. I went to Kryloft Mansion to visit my grandfather, who told me he'd been digging around in the garden when he found this box with a journal inside. But the real reason I was there was to find out more about that door, Jonathan clarified. The journal seemed odd, and there was nothing on the cover to tell us who it belonged to. We opened it, and we found that save for a seemingly random page, it was all blank. What was written on the page? I asked. On the header it said, "Follow this rule," and on the very bottom was a single sentence, "Do not follow the carts." Then everything seemed to make sense to me. I had heard the sound of cats mewling coming from the actors in the show, and I realised that before that, I'd been hearing the sounds of cats near my house more and more. Cats? Yeah, Jonathan began. Cats. My grandfather laughed, saying it was a joke, but I could tell he was scared. I asked him if he knew anything about cats, and he did say that he'd been hearing these meows and screeches inside the mansion, but whenever he'd look, the sounds would be coming from outside or another part of the place. Being as old as he wasn't really in a shape to be chasing cats, so he usually returned to what he was previously doing. And then, I asked, I began to see the door more and more, and I kept finding the key in my hand near the white door, people all around me pointing at it. Every time, I heard something behind the door, something scratching or something mewling, like cats. Yet the sounds were too low-pitched, too slow. Strange indeed. A few days passed, and then, around 10 at night, I got this cryptic message from an unknown number with a single text message. It was simply a text of a single rule. do not follow the cats. Immediately after I received the text message, I got a call from my grandfather, Jonathan stated. He said he'd seen a group of cats walking outside the mansion and sent me a photo of 4 white cats walking together. What did you do next? Well, nothing. He called me and he told me to listen, and so I did. He activated the video mode and showed me the cats outside. I heard the shrill noises of cats mewling, yet the ones outside didn't seem to be making a sound, just walking in a circle, mouths closed and tails up. After the call, he told me local animal control would arrive tomorrow and that he'd have nothing to fear. So, animal control arrived at lunch the next day. I went with him and we searched every corner of the house, yet we didn't find any proof of an infestation of cats. No cat fur, no noises, nothing. It was too silent and utterly impossible, he continued. We had recorded yesterday's call, but the volume seemed eerily absent, and we had no proof of the cats. So animal control simply left, asking us to please get more proof. I noted this and the rules. Perhaps the rest of my team would be interested in what the interview had to offer. Okay, continue. Later that day, I was walking downtown to get dinner when I noticed a group of cats. The exact same cats my grandfather had shown me out of the corner of my eyes. They were looking at me, and when they saw I'd noticed them, they stood up and began to walk into an alley. I, confused, followed them in. I saw them scratching at the wall, and then they just stopped, and then simply walked away. Scratching wall, I murmured, noting down the information. The next time I saw the white door, it had more scratches on it, and that night, my grandfather, on call, loudly declared he'd had enough of the screaming cats every night, and swore he would follow them and find out where they were coming from, Jonathan told. I warned him about the text message, the bizarre ruled journal. He laughed it off, saying it was some sick prank, and then shut the call off. That's when... Yeah, he muttered. Through the text he sent me, he told me that the cats were getting louder as he neared the group outside, and that he had a gun in case he needed to shoot them. I once again told him to call animal control or something instead, but he wouldn't listen. He told me the cats were all running away now, leading him to an alley, and then... Well, that's the last text that was sent to me. After that, I began, remembering the case notes. You rushed over to the mansion and found him missing. Right, I filed a missing persons report, and soon, me and the authorities were all over the city, searching for him. That night, I didn't hear nor see the white cats or the white door, and it felt like something wrong had happened, something that simply wasn't supposed to. We didn't find my grandfather then. That was the next day, right? I inquired. Jonathan nodded his head. A corpse was sighted in an alleyway earlier the next day, and it was almost impossible to identify the body due to what seemed to be scratches all over it. When I heard the news of the corpse, I knew it was him, and soon it was verified that it was indeed Damien Kryloft, my grandfather. And that's it. Yeah, since that day, I haven't heard the cat scream or seen that white door anywhere. I truly hope you and your team find out what the hell happened to my grandfather. We will, I assured, finally switching the recording off. We will. With that, Jonathan Hughes left the table and vanished into the nighttime air of Maplin City. As I got up, I swear I could have heard the soft yet eerie sound of a cat mewling into the night air of the city.